You're being sensitive, Joseph said, making the ultimate mistake of mankind. What's the date? Is it that time of the month? You're always a little alert heavy when the moon is full. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus, watching from the doorway, whispered, Mayday. Mayday. He's crashing and burning. Don't you ever, Leslie whispered, ever mention the time of the month again if you want to keep your internal organs where they are. She walked out, leaving Joseph standing alone in the studio. Marcus walked over and put a hand on his friend's shoulder. Man law number one. Joseph, you never speak on the alert. You just nod and agree until it passes. I think I need a drink, Joseph sighed. We all do, Marcus agreed. As the sun set on another week of drama, the Williams house was finally quiet. The Barry White music wasn't playing, but there was no smoke coming from the kitchen either. They were for better, they were for worse. And somehow, against all odds, they were still together. The end. The chaos of commitment. A novel of love, lies and thin walls. Chapter 1. The Pendergrass Protocol. The walls in the Williams household were not so much barriers as they were suggestions. For MJ, the 13-year-old son of Marcus and Angela, those walls were the primary source of his education, albeit an education he frequently wished he could skip. As MJ sat at the kitchen table, staring down a plate of cold scrambled eggs, the air began to vibrate. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the baritone rumble of a man Marcus Williams referred to as the GOAT. Who is Larry White, Dad? MJ asked as Marcus finally descended the stairs, looking a little too refreshed for a Monday morning. Marcus stopped, his hand on the banister, a look of genuine pain crossing his face. Larry White? Son, you are wounding my soul. It's Barry. Barry White, the man with the voice of velvet and thunder. Respect the legend. Whatever, MJ muttered, poking a rubbery egg. All I know is that when the real D voice starts rumbling through the floorboards, you guys come down here smiling and singing. It's traumatic. I'm trying to study for a history test, and all I hear is I love you, baby baby. Marcus sat down, grinning. He was a man who took pride in his marriage, even if that marriage currently resembled a high-speed car chase on a rainy night. Slept late. That's a good sign, MJ noted, narrowing his eyes. It means we're communicating, MJ. That's what adults do, Marcus said, though his smile faltered as the sound of footsteps approached from above. Coming down, MJ said. And if she's singing, I'm calling child services. I shouldn't have been listening, but it's hard not to when Teddy Pendergrass is the background music. It's Teddy Pendergrass, MJ. At least you got that one right, Marcus sighed. Angela Williams entered the room like a localized weather system, beautiful, sharp, and currently set to partly cloudy, with a chance of thunder. She didn't look like a woman who had spent the night basking in the velvet tones of Barry White. She looked like a woman who was still holding a mental receipt for every grievance she'd suffered since 1998. Good morning, Marcus, she said, her voice clipped. Good morning, babe, Marcus replied, his tone cautious. I've been thinking all night long. That explains the smoke I smelled coming from your ears, Angela retorted. But I've made a decision. I've decided to trust you. I believe you didn't sleep with that woman, Sabrina Murphy. I'm letting it go. Marcus let out a breath he felt he'd been holding for 3 weeks. Thank you, baby. You have no idea how long I've been waiting to hear that. I love you. I love you too, Angela said, leaning in for a kiss. But as she pulled away, her eyes flickered with a familiar, dangerous light. And since I'm a woman of my word, I'm off to verify. Verify what? Marcus asked, his heart sinking. Sabrina's address, Angela said, grabbing her purse. MJ, finish your breakfast. Miss V is on her way to take you to school. As the door slammed behind her, MJ looked at his father. So, that's a no on the makeup session, then. Marcus leaned his head back and closed his eyes. Eat your eggs, MJ. Chapter 2. The contractor from the past. At Lady Andy's salon, the atmosphere was usually a mix of hairspray, gossip, and the rhythmic clicking of Jennifer's acrylic nails. Today, however, there was an added layer of tension. Sawdust. Angela stood in the middle of her expansion project, looking at a blueprint as if it were a battle map. Standing next to her was Leslie, her best friend, and the person most likely to talk Angela out of or into a felony. "The bid was a little high, Leslie," Angela complained. "I want the job done right. But I don't want to pay for a solid gold foundation." "Tariq is the best, Angela," Leslie insisted. Tariq, the contractor, stepped out from behind a plastic sheet. He was a man who clearly spent more time at the gym than at the lumber yard. He wiped sweat from his brow, his eyes landing on Angela with a glimmer of recognition that made Leslie's internal alarm bells scream. "I'll keep it professional," Tariq said, his voice a low rumble. "But Angela, it's been 14 years. I can't believe you don't even remember me." Angela froze. She looked at Tariq, then back at the blueprint, then back at Tariq. A slow, cold realization began to dawn on her. "I remember a lot of things, Tariq. I just choose to filter the trash." "Trash?" Leslie coughed violently. "Okay, moving on. Let's talk about these columns." Jennifer, who had been eavesdropping from the manicure station, leaned over to a customer. "Honey, that is the kind of man you make a fool of yourself for. How does Angela not remember him? She was wild back in college. If I had a piece of that, I'd have it framed on my wall." "She remembers," Jennifer whispered. "She called me last night. She knows exactly who he is, but she's happily married to Marcus. Mostly. Not lately," the customer noted. "Not with the Sabrina Murphy mess. I heard she burned his car." "She did," Jennifer said with a nod of approval. "And his clothes, and his jewelry. She had his gold melted down into a medallion that said, 'I hate you.' That's a woman with a vision." Angela, meanwhile, was staring at Tariq's face specifically, his jawline, and the way his ears were shaped. Or, rather, it was mething in a way that made her want to vomit. Chapter 3. The DNA caper. "I'm going to her house," Angela announced to the salon later that afternoon. "Sabrina Murphy. I'm putting this to bed." "Angela, no," Leslie pleaded. "You told Marcus you trusted him. If you go there, you're breaking the pact." "The pact was built on a foundation of maybe," Angela said, grabbing a jar of Vaseline. "And if she lies to me, I'm going to need this for my knuckles." "I'm coming with you," Jennifer said, jumping up. "I want to see the house. And I want to see if she really has a kid that looks like Marcus." The confrontation at Sabrina's house was less of a brawl and more of a psychological thriller. Sabrina, a woman who looked like she'd been caught in a web of her own making, eventually cracked under the weight of Angela's stare. "I was put up to it," Sabrina cried. "I don't even have a kid. Marcus and I never even met. A friend of his paid me to say it." Angela stood there, the Vaseline unused in her pocket. She should have felt relieved. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt like a giant, neon-lit idiot. She had burned a luxury vehicle and a wardrobe of designer suits based on a lie. "Oh, I'm in deep," Angela whispered as they walked back to the car. "I'm in so deep. You have to tell him," Leslie said. "No, she doesn't," Jennifer countered. But the universe had other plans. While Angela was agonizing over her guilt, she was also obsessing over Tariq. The contractor's resemblance to MJ was becoming an intrusive thought. "Jennifer, I need a favor," Angela said, her voice trembling. "Eh, what?" "You heard me. You have that friend in the FBI, right? The one who rushes results? I need to know if MJ is Marcus's son." Jennifer's eyes nearly popped out of her head. "Angela, you were drunk that night in college. We all were. But MJ has Marcus's eyes. Doesn't he?" "He has eyes," Angela said vaguely. "But Tariq has the same whooping cough history, and the same poor circulation in his left leg." They were talking about it today. It was like a father-son medical convention. Jennifer reached into her purse, a Mary Poppins-style bag that contained everything from snacks to survival gear, and pulled out a packet of sterile swabs. "I always keep these, you know, for child support emergencies. Or Mari auditions." The plan was simple. Swab Tariq, then swabbed Marquez while he was sleeping. The execution was a disaster.